My name is Jamie Radford. I'm the CEO and founder of an organisation called the Accounts Payable Association. Now, I've asked Mark to leave the doors open at the back in case I can't get out, because I represent 50,000 people that don't pay your invoices. Okay, so, well, they do, but we'll get into that in a second. So, and before we start, actually, I don't know where that young lady is, Adela. There is such a thing as called the Napoleon theory. I stand at 5'5", and Napoleon was a giant. So, yeah, it is real. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about a thing called the mirror. Myself, Mark, and Dan from Consider Solutions, we came up with a concept about a month ago around about how accounts payable and accounts receivable, are they really a mirror? What's the difference between the two? Is there some synergies? Are there things that can be learned? And we did a webcast, had several hundred people on it, and it was exceptional. And what came out of it, which we'll cover a little in today, is there was a lot of synergies between what goes on in accounts payable and ultimately what goes on in accounts receivable. So again, you know, everything that's here, we went through a lot of receivables, folks, so please don't chastise me on this one. But ultimately, the idea really from the session was really to get a viewpoint from both the payables world and the receivables world about the biggest challenge that you face. What can we do? How can we overcome those? So that's the context of today. So as I say, Mark was on the session. It was exceptional. I think if I press a button, no, is it this button here? Anybody got a clicker for me? Can I go to the next slide? No, okay, hang on. There you go. Okay, so my accounts payable is your accounts receivable and vice versa. That's the topic we're going to cover today. Yes, I'd like some interaction. So either shout, I can see some of you, I can see in the front row, but I can't see at the back. Shout, don't shout at me, but shout at your answers. But before I start, what I wanted to do is give you, if you like, the sob story. So you do let me out. Let me tell you about how we created the association, what we stand for, and that might give you an idea about all those poor folk who tell you that the check's in the post. You'll get paid on the next payment run. The boss is, you know, he's on holiday and he's not signed all the checks before he goes, or he hasn't pressed play on the push on the payments run. So look, before I start, so this is us. We are the Accounts Payable Association. We started, as it says on here, from humble beginnings. Effectively, I used to run shared services centres around Europe, around the world, and everywhere I went, there was lots and lots of people that represented big finance functions. So there was lots of very highly qualified accountants, there was some really great credit folks, and every organisation, or every department within the finance function had someone or something that represented them. So in your world, you'll have chartered institutes, you'll have associations, no doubt, you have organisations such as Mark's that look after the credit industry. But in the world of accounts payable, there was nothing, absolutely nothing. There was an organisation in the US, but I was from the UK. So I searched really hard to try and find somewhere, couldn't find anywhere. Anyway, long story short, I decided to create a LinkedIn group. I'm assuming everybody's on LinkedIn. We created the LinkedIn group. At the time, I don't know, I had about 200 friends. And I said, look, all of you go onto this LinkedIn profile group for me, start to comment, start to share, start to tell me some of the issues that you face in the world of payables. And it was remarkable. Roll forward 2 years later, LinkedIn sent me a message saying the group that you've created now needs an administrator. You need somebody to run this group because it's grown from your 200. It's now standing at 26,500 people. Wow. So at that point, rather than me running around the world and trying to talk and work with finance communities, I thought maybe I can sit back here and try and create something for those payables folk. And that's where the idea and the concept came for what is now known as the Accounts Payable Association. We just simply surveyed. We asked the group, what would you like? What could we do for you? And they came up with 3 things. And I think it will resonate with yourselves. The first thing, they wanted to be heard. They wanted to have a voice. Nobody listened to them. They were the poor relatives, if you like. So they wanted to have a voice. So what could we do there? We wanted to go and create a membership product. So that's what we've done. We've now created a membership organisation on the back of that. The second thing, they wanted some careers. They wanted a pathway, somewhere they could go. So we created the certification, the qualification, and the courses that we now do. That was the second thing. The third one, which is what you're at today, they wanted to go to events. They wanted to network. They wanted to go and meet like-minded people. So we've created a whole event schedule and also a conference similar to this. So the reason why I've got red eyes and I'm shorter and I'm fatter and I'm balder is because we had to do a conference 2 days ago on Wednesday. So I flew from the UK late Wednesday evening, early Thursday morning. We had 450 people in a room, all from Payables from around Europe, and we celebrated all things Payables. And I told them, by the way, at the end of the session, look, I might not come back from this session. I said, I'm flying over to see a whole bunch of credit professionals. So have you got any tips and advice? And they just said, the check's in the post. That's all they said. So look, the reality is we have a superb community of individuals with masses and masses of expertise. And that's what I want to get across to you, that when we talk about the mirror, the Payables folk are experts, they're professionals, and they're very similar to yourselves. They want to do a good job, but they are held back by process, people, systems, but we will talk about that. In terms of our social media presence, lastly on this slide, we do have a huge social media presence. So if you can, and we'll talk about at the very end of the session, my advice to you, before we even get into the session, is to go and learn from your opposite number. Go into the communities, find out what their challenges are. We have a thing called the AP Forum. So if you get on your phones, go into LinkedIn, search Accounts Payable Forum. It's run by myself and my organisation. Get into that group. Go and find out what the group's all about. Go and look in the forums. Absolutely free to go into. And that group now stands at 52,000 people. So it's huge. It's absolutely huge. So if you really want to know what's going on in the world of payables, then go and join that group. Okay. Right. Okay. So a voting question for you now. I assume you're just going to shout out, put your hands up. I put 4 or 5 issues or 4 things here that are some of the biggest challenges when it comes to accounts payable. Internal processes and complexity, non-compliance, lack of support, and training and awareness. Which one, or all of them, would you say are the biggest issue? So internal process and complexity. Hands up if you think that's the biggest issue. There we go. Okay, yeah, I agree. Non-compliance. Oh, there we go. There's a couple at the back there. Lack of support. Okay, yeah, there's varies here. Training and awareness. Okay. So it's a mixed bag. I mean, and again, the thing with this slide, and trust me, when I speak to the payables folk, there could be 100 items on here. If I go through them individually, which will go on the next slide, there we go. There we go. Okay. Yeah, okay. If I go through those individually, internal process and complexity when it comes to accounts payable is one of the biggest challenges we face. It really is. Who in the room here has to go onto supplier portals and complete supplier portals in terms of trying to board yourself on from a customer perspective to go get paid? Anybody do that in this room? Yeah, there you go, okay. And do you have to do that several times? Or do you do it once and it finishes? Several times, yeah. Frustrating? Yes, absolutely, okay. But if you're in the world of payables, it makes our life an awful easier because you're completing the information to give to us so we can then use your information to go make you pay you faster. But we then, if I sit in the side of yourselves, I then think to myself, how many times do you have to fill out a supply portal? Question?
Why the payable is not considered the procurement team information?
We'll get to that. There you go. You see, look, come up on stage. You can come and do this. It is. You know, we'll talk a little bit about silos. It's absolutely spot on. So internal processes are a big challenge for accounts payable. And I'm pretty sure in the receivables world, in the credit world, your internal processes don't help. Sometimes they hinder. Complexity in the world of accounts payable absolutely is a huge challenge. That slide, by the way, that young lady had earlier with that, what an organisation really looks like, I think it's absolutely spot on. And I can replicate that in every organisation. In my organisation, by the way, My wife does tell me what to do, but I don't think I've slept with anybody. I did see the thing slept with, so I've got that one to do, I don't know. But the, the non-compliance part for us in the world of payables, I promise you, is a huge challenge. It really is. Non-compliance for us, it can be anything. It can be people not approving requisitions, not approving purchase orders. And remember, when we sit on this side of the fence, we're blaming you credit folk. You don't put your purchase order on the invoices. No PO, no pay. You're not getting paid. Let's push them back. Have you heard these terminology before? It's a big thing in the payables world. No PO, no pay. It's all your fault. Just put POs on. Stop putting daft invoices. You know, it's all that sort of stuff. But internally, in the organisations that we work with, non-compliance is a big, big challenge. Here we go. Here comes the slide that's telling me what you voted for. So internal process and complexity actually comes out at 60%. So you're all in a big agreement, if you like, in the room, the ones that didn't put their hands up. That's the challenge. And it absolutely is in the world of payables. And it must be in the world of credit as well. In terms of lack of support, it's huge in the world of payables. We do not, even though we exist now, we're 5 years old, we're coming into our 6th year, we've given the payables world a voice. They still tell me that the likes of the next gentleman after me is a CFO. We do want to lock the door on him because we need to get those C-suite to listen to us. CFOs, the senior managers of the world are just not listening to what we do and how we do it and how hard we work. So that lack of support is absolutely there. The final one here, the training and awareness, which is something we do. We do training, we do awareness, and it's a thing that myself and Mark are very passionate about, is how we can train and collaborate between the two industries. Because it's great us going and training all the payables teams around the world, but actually what we should be doing is collaborating and trying to train the credit professionals of the world as well. So that's where that collaboration will come. So exciting things ahead, so watch this space. You may see us come and talk to you at some point about some collaborations. Okay, so back to my next slide. Oh, hang on a minute. Next one. Okay, so talking to Mark, he told me that these are all your challenges. If you can get over these things, then you've got nothing to complain to us payables folk about. So if we go through them one by one, limited end-to-end knowledge. Who in the room agrees that's one of the challenges in the credit world? There we go, show of hands. Okay, very good. So it's number one, totally agree. Silos, okay. So silos, again, a big problem in the world of credit. Working in silos, not working with your collaborative partners, those daft salespeople that go out and sell things that don't tell you anything about, don't fill out forms correctly. We have the same issue, but ours are buyers. So you have sales, we have buyers. Process orientation. Issues in credit world? Yeah? Low management skills. Do we feel that's an issue in the credit world? Yeah, I can see lots of nodding. Okay. So does that mean you're just really poor at managing? By the way, I do want to get out of the room. Low investment. Now, that is a challenge in the payables world. And, you know, one of the things we really struggle with in the payables is to get a budget, to get investment. The biggest investment they can make, CFOs in the room or senior finance people in the room, just because you go and invest in some technology to try and make the world better, doesn't make the people any better. So invest in the people. Invest in the people that have to go and use these technologies and try and pay the bills. So low investment could be technology. In our world, it's very much around the people. Is that the same in the credit world? Is it low investment in the people element as well? Lots of them. There's a guy over there. I think his head's going to fall off in a second. But I totally agree. Low investment, it seems to be in both areas. High attrition. What's the world like in credit? Do people come and go? In the payables world, by the way, it's very, very difficult, not only to attract people into the world of payables, because it tends to be a low salary, low expectation, low reward. I'm really selling the world of payables. But then they go through a really difficult job, and then people wonder why they can't keep them into the jobs they go. Is that the same in the credit world? Because I've been told that you're paid an awful lot more than we are. You get all the kudos, you get credit targets. Is that true? No? Is it difficult to keep your people? Is attrition rate a challenge? Yes? Yeah? And what are you doing about making that challenge different? Have you got any ideas, any concepts? Are you paying them more? Giving them interesting things to do? What's your challenges? What are you doing about that attrition? And we'll talk about that in a second. And then the last one on Mark's list here is that low bar target setting. So effectively, I think what Mark's getting here is, you've got to set your bar high, but we're setting it far too low. And again, Mark did a great webcast on this. And ultimately, the point for these slides are how can we reflect what's the challenges in AP, what are the challenges in the credit and the receivables world, and how can we work together? All right, so that's Mark's. Anything you want to add before I go on from this slide? Any other issues that you as a credit folk face that could impact us folk in the payables world? Anything? No? This is your last chance to complain. When I go back to the folk, I'll say, look, I asked them the question, and then all that stuff on that slide was what I wanted. No, there you go. You had your chance. Okay, right. So, how do we work in harmony? How can accounts payable and receivable work in harmony? Number one, we've definitely got to start to improve the communication. Who in the room thinks communication is a big barrier between the receivables and the payables folk? Hands up. I'm going to put my hand up on this one, by the way. And it's not only internally, your own internal AP and AR, but actually when it's external, customer to supplier. Communication is the biggest challenge, and it's the easiest one we can overcome. So when I asked things like supplier portals, wouldn't it be nice if we gave you information about how to complete them, why it's important, and would you get paid on time if you did these things? Do you think payables folk do that, or the buyers do that? They think they do. They think they communicate really well. In the UK at the moment, which I think is the same around the world, obviously we've got a challenge, an economic challenge at the moment. We have a big challenge in the UK from micro to small businesses. We have a real challenge. Those businesses they're struggling at the moment. So the larger organisations, we're trying to get them to try and pay their suppliers on time, or maybe even a little earlier to keep the economy going. The biggest challenge we face is that the bigger businesses are assuming they're communicating to their smaller businesses, but actually the language and the nurture and the nature between the two is just not there. So we've got to improve that communication method. And it's by a show of hands, I think you totally agree. Awareness of processes. Again, are you all aware of the process that the AP teams have to go through? Or do you guess it? Is it sort of do you know that, can I give you a day in the life of an accounts payable person? We turn up, we open our computer, we've either got lots of paperwork around us, which is invoices to be paid, or we've got virtual queues of lots of invoices we've got to process. And as we're trawling through all those invoices, we then get lots of phone calls from these horrible credit controllers and credit professionals. Where's my invoice? You told me that last week. And then on top of that, we've then got to do statement reconciliations, we've got to go through our recs, we've got to go through our month ends, our year ends, and at the end of all that, at the end of that day, we then do a month end, a year end, and then we repeat and go forward again. That's a day in the life of accounts payable. Have I sold it to you? No. In the receivables world, it's very, very similar. It's a very monotonous, sort of same old, same day exception. What we have to do is actually make people aware of our processes. And again, that could be internal, it can be external, but it's a really big challenge, definitely in the world of payables. Education and upskilling. Who in the room is a credit professional in terms of qualification? Anybody? This young lady here. Okay, there's a couple. There's probably more. You just don't want to put your hand up. You don't want to be known as though. Do you think if your organisation invested in you, that you could then go and get qualifications and training and learning? Show of hands for that. There you go, a lot more. Okay, so again, going back to that point earlier about the investment, it's a really important factor. Organisations have to invest in the training, the learning, and the development of you as people. So professional qualifications is something we do. At the Accounts Payable Association, we have lots of different levels from, if you like, an entry level right through to a manager type level. And then above, we start to go into the leadership area as well, where we offer mentorship and leadership. Wednesday, we had 400 odd people in a room, and I asked the same question. Half the room told me they were now qualified, which means we'd done a good job. So rather than a few, we'd done a good job when we got half the room. The other half of the room were telling me the same. Their organisations, their bosses, their leaders were not invested in them. So all we did, we put the two together. How did you go get your qualifications and your investment, and what can these individuals learn? Now again, I sit at the helm of the organisation. I want them all to be qualified, purely because I can keep the organisation going, but you have to get the investment for what you want to do. So professional qualifications, what Mark and the team do here is learning, development, education, giving you a platform and a voice, and you've got to try and get that from your employers. Engagement's a really, really important part. In terms of engagement, what can we do to further engage? Well, the most important part is to go to these sort of things. Now, I told you there was 450, I think, was in the room in total on Wednesday. I would have loved to come to this session weeks in advance of our conference and invited you all to come along and listen to one of our conferences. Ours is one day. Next year it's going to be 2 days because we had too many people. But I'd love you to come to a Payables conference. Come and listen to the people in our world. Try and get that engagement. Try and understand their issues, because it's the only way we are going to resolve this mirror. What goes on in one side and goes on the other, you've got to try and get some level of engagement. This last one, the one but last, is the empowerment. Who in the room feels, and by the way, I asked this question Wednesday, and I'll tell you the results after. Who in this room feels empowered to make decisions in the functions that you work, by a show of hands? Okay, that's not bad. When I asked that question in the accounts payable world, it was really, really low. So you can imagine I'm asking these questions throughout the day, and they're saying, yep, I'm qualified, I feel that I'm getting a voice. When I asked the empowerment question, it was really, really low. And that, to me, that meant I still haven't done what we've set out to do when we set the association up. When we set the association, we set it up for 3 things. The first one was reward. Can we get people get paid for the job they do? Can we increase their salaries? And over time, that has started to increase over the 5 years that we've been in existence. The second one is reward recognition. So recognition is, do they get recognised for the job they do? They are starting to get recognised. But the last one we stand for, it's our mission statement: reward, recognition, and voice. So yes, in a room of 400 odd professionals, they feel they have a voice, but then they go back to their organisation, they don't feel they have a voice. So this empowerment part, we as an organisation have to try and overcome. And it sounds a little bit like in the credit board, you might have to do the same as well. So again, some of the stuff that we may have planned with Mark and the team may help you to feel a bit more empowered in the organisations that you have. The last one, and this was a Dan French one, the shadowing. Have you ever sat in a job in the payables world and done a job of a payables analyst, clerk, manager? Anybody shadowed the payables world? Oh, a few people, okay. You survived, you came back. You went back, we call it the dark side. So we have the light side and the dark side. Payables clearly is the light side. You went back to the dark side, okay. Shadowing, I do believe, is a great tool. If you can go and spend a day, a week, a month, if you can survive it, you know, you're credit professionals, you've not got the thick skins that we have, joking. If you could go and shadow and spend some time in the world of a payables clerk, analyst, team leader, manager, you'll understand their issues. And by the way, we're telling the same to the payables world. Go and shadow, go into those people's environments. Go and see what it's all about. Shadowing is a really, really important tool. Right, that's the end from me. In terms of questions, let me ask you one question before, if you've got any questions for myself, because I'm a little early. There you go. Normally I'm way over. A question from myself to you is, if we were to offer some forms of collaboration between payables and receivables, who in the room would happily put their hand up and maybe attend a conference of ours? There you go, okay. By the way, I'm not paying for you. But if I open the invite, there you go. We are starting to do a little bit more online. We are starting to do a little bit more engaging. In the UK, we have chartered institutes for credit professionals, and we are trying to reach out. We're trying to improve those collaborations. But what I would love to think is, firstly, go join those forums. Go join the Accounts Payable Forum. Go and find out what our folk do, how we get involved, what you can do, and what you can learn. And also, when you're in, I promise you, when you're in those forums, voice your opinion, and you will have answers and concerns from our industry. So in terms of a question from me is, yes, it'd be lovely if you can attend some other events. They're in the UK at the moment. We are planning some European events as well. But make sure, and I think there's a couple of guys from the Considers in the room as well. If you get the chance either to fly to the UK or come to a European, maybe a payables and receivables type event, I think it's a great thing for you to do. Right, I'm 4 minutes early, so anybody got any questions for me? This young man here.
Do you think the banking industry wants AR and AP?
That's an awkward question. What a great question first. Look, you know what? I don't think they do. I really don't, if you want my personal opinion. Because if they did, they'd put more time, effort and money and even funding into trying to make that collaboration work. So, you know, that's a challenge for us, but that's my personal opinion. Anybody differ to this young man? So he wants to know if the banking industry wants us to collaborate, wants us to fix these processes.
I know they don't, but yeah. So, yeah, because in my opinion, basically the banks, they go to the vendor and say, hey, ask for longer terms and pay late, right?
Yeah.
And they go to the customer and say, hey, we're here. We're going to offer you supply chain financing, discounting, factoring, AR securitization. They want to fit in between and make money, right? So yeah, this harmony between AR and AP, they don't like it.
They don't, and you know what, in the payables world, some of the best practice, for instance, are things like early settlement discounts. So if we pay you sooner, you give us a little bit of a discount. But I promise you, in the UK definitely, very rarely do we ever get to a point where we can have those early payments because our processes, our people, our systems don't allow us to take them. So as much as you want to offer us and give us that ability to pay you faster, you may be right that some of the banking issues, but look, just because the banks at the moment are all up in the air, I'm not on a downer on the banks, but the reality is, if we can improve the training, the process and the people, then we have a chance of trying to make that collaboration work. But great question.
Thank you.
Any other questions before I shoot? This young man over here. I don't know what that box is. I'm assuming it's a speaker, but I just think you throw. There you go. What a great thing. There you go.
So, one question I always wanted to ask. How do you feel about portals?
Portal. Now look, to the look, in a payables world, a portal, a supplier portal, I assume you mean, we love them in the payables world. And I'll tell you the reason we love them clearly is because as suppliers, you're filling the information for us. So you're going to get it right, you're going to give us the information, so it's less for us to do, more about the quality and the checks that we can do. But to my point earlier, we are then aware that there's lots of them, lots and lots of portals you need to complete. So it's that challenge and that balance between the two. So I would say best practice in the payables is to have supplier portals. But in the credit world, I definitely understand that challenges that gives to you. We've got to come up with something in the middle. So you have organizations that have, if you like, one portal for many, many suppliers and many, many customers. But are we all going to go there? So we are a fan in the payables world. I personally am a fan of supplier portals for everything from compliance to risk to reduction in fraud. These are the things these things reduce. But I get it. From a credit, it's extra work, more time and effort for yourselves.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, one at the back. Throw it at him. Keep those doors open, by the way.
Thank you very much. So, just a couple of observations on AP, which I think are interesting. So I'm going to ask you 3 quick questions. One is, why is it that everybody else can do your job better than you? Number two, but it's true, we're far better than people in AP. It doesn't matter if you're in sales.
Can I record this?
Yeah, some of the procurement decisions that they make are absolutely shocking. Anyway, sorry, you can see I'm doing this a bit tongue-in-cheek because this is the pain that people in AP go through every single day. So the next question, I guess, is in AP, how come when you make a good decision, nobody actually appreciates any of the time or effort that you put into it? And the third point is, when you make a bad decision, it's like, how come everybody's got a spotlight and is shining it in your direction? So I guess those are my 3 questions. Just very quickly, though, to the gentleman that was asking about portals and effectively EDI. If he wants to solve that problem, the company I work for, we actually specialise in doing that. So come and have a chat with me. I'll tell you how we do it. There you go. So that's it. That's my 3 questions to you anyway.
Well, look, I'm going to very quickly answer that question because I know I'm out of time now. I've got 10 seconds. But you're right. If I had £1 for every time somebody told me in accounts payable, you and the rest of the business are telling it's the payable's fault, they're useless, a trained monkey could do the job, I'd be a millionaire, I promise you. But if you look at what payables can actually influence in terms of the end-to-end procure-to-pay process, they can influence very small amounts. And by the time an invoice lands on their desk, you as the credit professionals have gone through a horrendous time. You've been telephone tennis, you've gone to the wrong organisations. So the payables folk are always playing catch-up. So yes, you're absolutely right. It's always the payables' fault apparently, but it's not. Actually, if we got our processes right, we use things like systems at the front end for onboarding suppliers, make the process easier and more effective for customers and suppliers to work in harmony, to my original slide, we'll get better. I think I covered your points there, but I'll pick it up with you in a minute. At that, I'm out of time. I will pick up your point. Okay, carry on.
Yeah. Who gave you the more pressure, the credit side, who asked for the money, or your own plan, who's order on the floor?
Ah, good question. Yeah, look, I think internally, AP come under a lot of pressure. You know, we're on stop. Those horrible credit professionals put us on stop again. You know, how dare you? I can't get my supply, whatever it is. But the internal pressures come in spikes, whereas the credit professionals are in a constant, because you'll constantly have targets to sort of get. So I would say it's the credit professionals who are on our case all the time.
So you can ignore us.
Oh, yes. Look, we just switched the phone off. You know, one of the beauties about COVID was that we all worked from home. We switched the phones off, so you can't get hold of us any longer. But great question. But again, it's a spike question. Internally, we always come under challenge, but from an external point of view, it goes back to the communication. We need to collaborate and communicate better. On that point, I'm going to leave you because I'm out of time. Thank you so much for today. I love to speak to you.